Hello. So today's behind the scenes is, well, it's basically me getting ready and remembering to how to put on this makeup, which I haven't done in a little while. So talking against the clock whilst trying to do this is going to be a little bit challenging, but I will do my best to talk to you. So I'm getting ready for a podcast and I'm going to be talking in about half an hour to a lady called Anne Marie. And she's in America. I think she's in Washington, actually. That must be interesting right now. And she runs a podcast called Armchair Historians, not Armhair Historians, which is what I said in the last take. I wish I could keep that in, but I had to change the video for lots of other reasons. And she's doing Armchair Historians. I don't know which mirror to look in. I don't know whether to look in this screen or this screen. And she's talking to me about cabaret, about the history of cabaret. And I get to choose which period in history we talk about as a jumping off point for what I do and my career and things like that. And I've been a bit torn this week about which to choose because I've flicked back to a very well-thumbed, well-loved book that I own, which is called The Cabaret by Lisa Opinionesi. Lisa, I adore your book. I think the fact that it was the first edition was written the year I was born also makes me feel even more passionate about it. And some of you may have seen I have reviewed my Lisa's book in my YouTube channel before, just trying to concentrate on this eye makeup. And there's also a bloopers video about me trying to make a video about Lisa's book. So she's quite heavily featured in this channel, so have a look around for her in the Paulus Recommends section. And I'm looking at the book this week. I read a little bit every day, and there's lots and lots of highlighter all over it and some post-it notes and stuff, because I like to remember which things I thought were relevant so I don't have to reread a book all over again when I go back to it. And I've been torn about which period in history to talk to Anne Marie about. There's a really beautiful one in the 1880s in Paris. Rudolph Salis, who set up Le Chat Noir, which is, arguably one of the most famous cabarets in the world. It is the first registered, official, recognized cabaret in the world, according to most people, especially people like Lisa, who really know their stuff. And he had to move venues after a few years because the area that the original Le Chat Noir was set in was extremely dangerous for artists and also the customers as well. And people kept getting killed and stabbed and stuff. I think Rudolph Salis was also stabbed as well. So Rudolph Salis and his regular artists and all these freaks, singers, poets and puppeteers, Lisa describes them in the dead of night taking all of the things from Le Chat Noir, the piano and the backdrops and the other musical instruments and the puppets and things like that, and dancing up the street away from their original venue and towards what would become probably the more famous venue for Le Chat Noir in Montmartre. And at the time, in the mid-1880s, the Montmartre wasn't, it was a new area of Paris. It wasn't what we think of now, is it teeming with artists and cabarets and those types, it wasn't like that at all. I presume they went there because it was cheap, but a little less dangerous than where they were walking away from. And I just thought it would be so amazing to have been part of that parade of people walking up the street towards their future, and what became an astonishingly important part of Paris and its tourism and its artistry, and still remains to this day. I was teaching there just last year. Was it this time of last year or last month? Last month in 2019, I was teaching cabaret there at Au Lapin à Gilles, which is extremely old. That's now the oldest, I believe, cabaret venue left in the world because Le Chat Noir is no more. I went to Le Chat Noir and it's now a hotel. And I tried to get the person behind the counter excited about the fact that I was, into cabaret and was on a pilgrimage to come and see the space, the venue. And he really couldn't have cared a shit. It was quite upsetting, actually. But they didn't sell them. They had some things like they had like a little coffee cup, and they had a plate, and they had a menu, I think they had as well, which were themed around Le Chat Noir. And I was so disappointed with this man's attitude and with the lack of points of reference for the history of the space that I stole a little cup, and I stole a menu as well. And I don't feel bad about it. So whoever owns that place, that hotel, you can come and arrest me, because you are not doing the history of cabaret or Paris any service. Anyway, I'm bathering on here and I'm really running out of time. So I haven't gone for that period in history with my chat with Anne-Marie. Instead, and obviously you can tune into my episode of Armchair Historians with Anne-Marie to find out exactly what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to choose the 1920s, specifically 1922 in Berlin, because by 1922, Berlin was basically the most exciting, funky, awesome place on the planet, that you could be, and be artistic and theatrical and creative. And we're one and a bit years away from the centenary of that period of history, and I'm particularly drawn to it, partly because the aesthetic of the posters and what we do know about what people wore and how they looked when they performed in Berlin in cabaret. Very similar, well, not very similar, but redolent of the movie Cabaret from 1972, the Liza Minnelli movie. That sort of particular vibe, and what I'm doing to my face and what I'm just about to put on right now is very much a nod to that period, heavily influenced by the movie Cabaret, I should add, as I think a lot of us are these days, and not the 1880s in Paris. So partly the aesthetic is why I've chosen the 1920s, 1922 in Berlin. Partly because of the protest song or the chanson, which goes back to much earlier, before the Le Chat Noir, as a form of entertainment, taking a song and protesting through it. It's as simple as that, really, whether that be an original song or a parody. And if you don't know what I mean by that, it just means you take a song and you change the words to it, to lampoon a famous person, a politician, maybe the Queen, something like that. I've got one about Dominic Cummings and his eyesight, to the tune of the Lockdown Tango from Chicago. That's a parody. The protest song really comes into its own in Berlin in the 1920s, and I feel like everything that's happening around the world right now politically, and the impact that COVID has had on theatres in this country, at least, I'm not quite so sure what it's like in other countries, has been and is going to continue to be utterly devastating for the industry and millions of people. And I'm not even just talking about performers. It's important to remember you're talking about riggers and lighting designers and techies and all those backstage people, the agents, the producers, the assistants of producers, and people that make events and drive trucks and unload trucks and are fun and funny and lighthearted and patient with annoying performers like me all the time. All of those people are not working and probably won't be working for an extremely long time. And our government doesn't care a shit, frankly. It called us recently low-skilled and said that our business was not viable. And if you consider that the entertainment industry in this country brought in more than agriculture to the national income, that's not the right phrase, last year, I question where this, not viable thing is coming from. It's not viable now because people can't go into theatre spaces, but that's because you're not letting them and you're making the wrong choices, Mr. Johnson. And I say Mr. with a heavy amount of irony. So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about, because I think that this 100-year centenary is a really important moment to allow cabaret to rise back up a bit like a phoenix from the ashes, alongside with its brothers and sisters in theatrical genres, to speak up, to speak out, to be political, to descend from the popular opinion, because that's what cabaret's always done, and we need it to do that. I need it to do that more than I ever have done in my lifetime, and I've been interested in and taking part in and creating cabarets for almost my entire life since I was a small boy. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and I'm running really late because I've been talking to you, and I'll probably end up missing my cue and getting it all wrong, and that will be your fault. Okay, so don't forget to look out for Armchair Historians on YouTube. Subscribe, say hello to Anne-Marie, and make sure you watch my episode. I don't know when it's coming out, I don't know what it's going to be called, but it will be, it'll have my name involved. So you should be all right. Anyway, I will see you, it's not too bad, is it? Next time, if we're saved.